Are there any other healers in the meta, in the game, I should say, not the meta? Are there any other heroes in the game that have had such an impact on the meta, that have had such an impact on who people level?
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
The hero of the month on Facebook and web is Martha. Now, we've had this discussion a couple of times. We've had this discussion about who is the best hero, the best healer, right? Who is the best healer? And we're going to open these 1,417 Honorable Guardian boxes while we roll, just because I want to get some Martha Soul Stones. The best healer, it varies depending on your team, right? And anytime you have a Hero of the Month discussion or a hero event discussion, like with Martha here on Facebook and web, and this in a way applies to mobile as well, the topic is always going to come up: what makes the best healer, right? A lot of people think that Dorian is the best healer, but that is contingent on Dorian's place in the lineup. That's contingent on Dorian's place in the lineup. He's got a lot of heals for those that are directly around him. Celeste, common contender for the top healer, right? Is absolutely the best single target healer, the fastest at least, right? Because she can ult twice as fast as the next healer. She's very far forward, which means she often has an opportunity to get her ultimate off faster than most others. Of course, Marcus stands in front of her, so Marcus would theoretically ult faster if she didn't ult at 50%. However, she suffers, just like Dorian has a downside. Yasmin. Celeste has the downside of only being an effective healer when you're playing in manual mode. D. Warman says Celeste is very hard to kill in many 800k teams. Oh yeah. Yeah, Celeste is a beast. Celeste is a beast. I think if you could control Celeste's toggling in the arena, I think you'd see her a whole lot more. There are team healers and solo healers. Which hero takes first in both areas? So you also have Marcus. I mentioned Marcus. Marcus has zero utility aside from a small shield, lots of heals. You have Thea. Thea has the area of effect silence. She's got fantastic early fight heals, because one of her heals is a single target heal. Not unlike Dorian's heal, not unlike Celeste's heal, she can heal very quickly. She's a little nicer on Facebook and web because of the Ascension skill upgrades that Thea got, right? It's a tough discussion. And, you know, it ultimately, the discussion usually breaks down to, tell me the rest of your team, right? Tell me who else is in your team. Then I can tell you who the best healer is for you. Right? Because the best healer for Kark is not the same as the best healer for the twins or Iris or Amira on mobile, right? People often put Dorian with Orion and Helios because of their little core back there, but that's not always the best situation. And what's more is the best healer isn't always the best healer just on your team. You also have to factor in the enemy's team as well. Right? Because this game is a puzzle. When it comes to player versus player combat, this game is a puzzle. You have to defeat the enemy team's lineup with your lineup. You have to figure out the enemy's puzzle with your lineup. But we have to consider Martha's ability to not only be a fantastic healer in, on average, every single team, and you could say that every healer will work in every single team, right? You can't just say this is the best healer, because honestly, most healers will work in just about every situation. You could drop Dorian out for Thea. You could drop Celeste out for Martha. You could drop Marcus out for Dorian. You know, they're interchangeable. In a lot of instances, that's probably fine. In specific instances, which often feel like they come up a lot, you need to have specific healers to go with your team. But outside of that, outside of just, is this healer a good healer for the average player, right? Because Martha obviously is a great healer for the average player, fits into just about every single team. There are some teams where you, for example, you want to stick Dorian next to Orion to keep him alive against, big physical attackers. You want to keep a critical hit hero next to Dorian to keep them alive versus Helios, stuff like that. There are specific instances where very specific healer choices are necessary. Zikri Kong asks the question, the ultimate question, the best PVE healer. You could say that Celeste is, because of her ability to toggle and block healing on the enemy team, but that's not what we're asking here, in my opinion. And this is something that I think we should all consider going forward. Martha is obviously the best healer for PvE. The big time difficult boss to defeat a year ago was Seymour. right? Seymour, you often see defeated by Martha. There are other heroes on the team, but often Seymour is defeated by Martha. Ashe, this year, the number one team to defeat Ashe. And we're seeing level 160, I think Ultima or Olympus, what's his name? Another YouTuber, is it Ultimus Gaming? Ultimus Hero War? I can't remember what the Olympus? Is it Olympus? He put out a video earlier this morning showing their guild's second week in a row defeating Ashe at level 160 with Martha. A lot of people think that Thea would work in that team. I'm not so sure. I've not seen a successful Thea versus Ashe. So whenever anybody asks me, what's the best healer? And I got into a conversation with a member of the community earlier this morning. You can't ask general questions like, what's the best healer? It's impossible to answer. I need specifics. What's the best healer to fight bosses in PvE? What's the best healer for Team 3 in Grand Arena? What's the best healer for fighting Ashe? What's the best team for fighting the Darkness Head, the Darkness Hydra Head, or the, whatever Hydra Head? What's the best healer? The only reason why I'm having this discussion again today, Ashima, is because Martha is the hero of the month on Facebook and web. Mr. Big Sexy says, maybe Thea not great because her magic defense. Pat Fez says Judge is the best healer. Martha is the best for every occasion, says Caesar. I like Martha a lot. Aesthetically, I've liked Martha from the get-go. I enjoy Celeste's strength, but I think that I prefer Martha. I think aesthetically, my favorite hero though is Marcus. Like, I like the look of Marcus a lot. I missed the boat on him, right? I didn't build him early. So I've kind of chosen not to build him up at all. On mobile, I have a little bit. But on Facebook and web, I haven't. I would like to because it seems like he'd be a good tank for one of the Ashe teams. Zikri Kong has a great segue. Again, man, Zikri, I'm glad you're here today. I'm glad you're here, Zikri. There are also a lot of enemies that hit the last hero, and Martha is there. So this is another situation where I think Martha shines. And a big reason why that you don't really see many Zhu or Jorgens anymore, right? And never mind the fact that Sebastian just outright cancels Jorgen, and Sebastian is such a strong hero on Hero Wars Facebook and web. She's got high health, high armor, high defenses overall. No dodge, obviously, unless, you're running an Aurora and give her the dodge artifact weapon buff. Are there any other healers in the meta? In the game, I should say, not the meta. Are there any other heroes in the game that have had such an impact on the meta? That have had such an impact on who people level? Joseph says, Martha is on both of my main teams, Facebook and web. Didn't build Martha because I went with all counters, so to speak. Okay, John Knox says, if you get your 70% Marcus, will be very adequate for most of your opponents. Sold, John Knox. I'll start working on Marcus. I really want to level up Marcus. Finkelzo says that Dorian has changed the meta. So I can see you have to make choices. You have to make choices based on facing a Dorian. I can absolutely see that. But have people decided not to level heroes because of Dorian? Maya after the rework. I don't give Maya enough attention. I'll be honest with you guys. Maya is like one of 5 heroes that I just do not give any attention to. I barely talk about Kira. I barely talk about Maya. I feel like I could talk about Judge all day, every day. Celeste is the hottest healer. Does that count? I mean, I follow her Instagram page. Dorian has helped my Isaac team versus Magic a lot. Celeste can hit, but Martha, not that much. Yeah, you're right, Saiton, but if we're talking about the best Magic dealers, the best hybrid healers, then that's a separate conversation, because I think that Maya might take the spot on that. Maya is a slower team healer compared to Martha. Finkelzo, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that Dorian has an impactful spot. I think you need to play around Celeste probably more than Dorian, but I think you need to play around Martha the most. I think people change team decisions based on Martha more than they would anybody else. Dorian doesn't shape the meta by being a counter. He's an awesome healer you build your team around. Oh yeah, 100%. I do not disagree, Finkelzo. I do not disagree. But what I mean to say, I'm out of boxes. But what I mean to say is, Zhu, he has basically lost most of the popularity that he had as a player versus player hero, due in large part to Martha, right? A lot of people leveled up Zhu to take out backline Lars, backline Kai, backline Faceless. There wasn't many heroes that you could put behind those heroes that would effectively support those teams. You could plug Martha in right there. You could argue that Sebastian is probably the reason why people don't level up Jorgen as much, but Jorgen is still very strong, and I would require Jorgen on any team that I would build. I would absolutely require Jorgen still, even though he's just hard countered so hard now. Celeste is the big counter to all the other big healers. Very true. And in manual mode. Who is the worst healer? Yashima, I don't think that there is a worst healer. I think that they're all fantastic healers. I think that Marcus used to be the absolute worst, but now Marcus has a home.